دايم كلبشين في المربط وفي القاع الكلاشين يضلوا يخبط يقول انت كذابة.
Do you remember seeing this image? About 30 Palestinian men, stripped of most of their clothes, herded away on the back of an open truck by the Israeli army in Gaza. Among the men is just one woman.
أنا هديل يوسف عيسى الدحدور.
Hadil is the only woman on the truck, and back in December she was taken away by the Israeli army, along with her husband Rushdie, where they were interrogated and tortured in detention. This is her testimony of being beaten, buried alive and strip-searched by Israeli forces. Hadil is a mother of 2 children and was taken away from her breastfeeding child for over 80 days. When asked about her children, Hadil breaks down crying as she was separated from her 9-month-old breastfeeding son Zain and her 4-year-old son Muhammad. Hadil was taken away to an undisclosed location where she was drugged and violently interrogated about the events of the 7th of October.
طلعونا من البيت فصلوا الإسلام في منطقة الزيتون إحنا من غزة الزيتون خشوا علينا اليهود اعتقلوني أنا وزوجي قلت لما نزلونا من قلب الدبابة غموني وحطوا يدي ورا في المرابط عصوم علي وعصوا على عيني وقعدوني نفس القعدة هذه اللي أنا كنت قاعداها في البيت اللي كنت فيه. بعدين أخذوا مني فحص واخذوا من جوزي وعمي وسلفي واللي كانوا معايا فحص برضه بعدوها خدرونا.
Hadil tried to tell the Israeli soldiers that she was a breastfeeding mother, and when she asked to be returned to her young son, they said no and started hitting her.
يقولوا لا صار يضربني الجندي يجي من ورايا في الكلاشين قاعوا يضربنا على ظهري يقول انت حماس اقول له لا وكنت اعيط. هذا صاروا يحققوا معانا على 7 اكتوبر صار يقول لي انت حماس قلت له لا. كان بهذه الفتره انه ايديا ب3 ايام يا ورا وكانوا المرابط معسوسين يعني هي من الاصال كانوا اكثر من هيك اتعذبت.
Her uncle, who was detained with her, asked the Israeli soldiers to loosen the zip ties on her hands, but instead, the Israeli soldiers tightened them.
ثاني ليلة نقلونا في دار هيك كانت كبيرة كانوا فيها كثير شباب يمكن أكثر من 100 شاب وأنا في الشلانة اللي كنت معاهم مرة كنت خايفة وهيك متوترة وكنت حالة انهيار صار معايا من الوجع اللي فيها كان والعناية اللي كنت نعمة يجي يعويل زي الكلب بالجندي يصير يعويل ورايا. وكانوا الشباب يقولوا بدهم يروحوا الحمام ما كانوش يروحوا على الحمام يعملوا على حالهم. كانوا الشباب يتعذب يعني كنت شايفاهم وعناية كنت نعمة يعني من كتر ما عصي علي العصبة تاعتهم.
Later on, at another detention center, the Israeli forces put her in a large hole in the ground with several other men and started burying them alive. She says they brought a tank to them and the tank was so close she thought it was going to run her over. One of the Israeli troops shot his gun twice in the air and told her he killed her husband. It was a form of psychological torture.
صرت أعيط بهذه الفترة وكان الشباب يعيطوا برضه دفنوهم بدوا يدفنونا واحنا عايشين. صرت اقول شو بدك تعمل فينا صار يقول لي بدي ادفنكم وانتم عايشين وخلي الكلاب تاكلكم. صرت اقول له لا تقني زي ما تاخذ جوزي. كل هذه الفترة انهيار وعياط.
One of the men being buried next to her was her father-in-law. When she tried to get him out of the dirt, despite her hands being tied and blindfolded, one of the Israeli soldiers hit her with the back of his gun. Her husband adds that the holes were like craters of airstrikes. They put around 100 men in the hole and the tank would circle the hole and cover them with dirt.
في اللي هو ضموا نصهم بعدين طلعونا منها
بعد نص ساعة يمكن طلعونا ولا
يعني
ساعة.
كله هذا ايش اللي هو كان يعملوا زي رباك للبني ادمين يقول لك يعني انهيار بده يخليك تموت وتطمع عليك وانتم طيبين.
أنا بهذه الفترة إنه قالوا لي إن جوزك مات.
After 30 minutes, the Israeli soldiers took them out and loaded them onto another truck. And despite still being the only woman, they took her hijab off and photographed her.
نزعوا حجابه ومصورين كانوا والشباب كلهم كانوا فوقية في الشلانة اللي كنت معاهم وأسأل عمي أقول له وين جوزي يقولوا لي مات. يعني هذه الفترة يقولوا لي مات.
They took them to another detention center where Hadil was surrounded by other detained women. She says they strip-searched them in front of female soldiers, took their money, gold, passport and phone and gave them prison clothes. Hadil says the Israeli forces interrogated her about 5 times, asking her what she was doing on the 7th of October, to which she said she was a normal citizen and we hadn't done anything, and she knows nothing about Hamas, but they still tortured her after.
وبعرفش أي شيء عن حماس. قال لي وإني لأن فتحتهم قلت بعرفش أنا عنهم شيء، وإنه نفس الأجوبة كل شيء أقول بعرفش شيء ويضربني، يقول أنت كذابة، أقول له لا مش كذابة، ويكون لابس زي شيء عقده وضل يخبطني في راسي.
In the 6 days she spent at this detention camp, she said they put them in cages in the freezing cold and kept them tied up from 4 a.m. to 10 p.m. at night. She said they hurled swear words at them and accused them of all being Hamas and insulted the Prophet Muhammad. There were 19 women and girls, the youngest of which was 15 years old.
وتعذبنا كثير عندهم وما كنت بغز حسيتهم.
She said, why would they take them away from me? I didn't do anything to the Israelis.
قلت لهم أنا مواطنة. ما ردوش، أخذوني معهم قالوا لي نص ساعة قعدتها عندهم 54 يوم، قالوا لي نص ساعة بالرجل كأولادي.
Hadil was taken from her home and detained by Israeli forces without reason for 54 days. From the 6th of December 2023 and returned on the 26th of January 2024. Hadil and her husband were returned separately but managed to find each other and their children.